allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
U.S. flags on both sides.
Did everybody get a chance to read the minutes?
Yes.
Motion to approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. Hanahan,
Aye.
Mr. Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Camgro,
Aye.
and Mr. Dang.
Aye.
Motion carried.
First case, first and only.
Alrighty. The only case we have tonight is case number 4-20-A. The applicant is Nathan and Leah Broman, and the location is at 4161 Romar Road. The applicant is requesting that the Union Township Board of Zoning Appeals grant variances and relief from the provisions of Section 506 and 602 of the zoning resolution in order to allow a previously converted accessory to retain and enlarge as a second dwelling on a single-family lot record in the R1 single-family residential district. Relief from Section 506 would give authorization for a second principal dwelling to remain on a single-family residential lot of record, and relief from Section 602 would reduce the required front yard setback for a principal structure in the R1 single-family district. The subject property, consisting of 12.402 acres, is located not far from the terminus of Romar Road in the northwestern quadrant of Union Township. Some background information: when the present owners purchased this property in 2010, it contained the house and what the county auditor's website refers to as two pole barns, one at 800 square feet and one at 900 square feet. All three structures were built in 1973. According to the application, the northernmost accessory had been converted into a guest house prior to their purchase. It is now their wish to have a family member move into the guest house and renovate, which would include a 16 by 16 foot addition. After reviewing the proposed variance requested submitted by the applicant, the following observations can be made. The proposed use has effectively been in place on this panhandle lot for decades. This is not the first instant of the conversation of an accessory to habilitatable space on a large and secluded parcel that the board has seen. It can be said that the subject structure will not result in impeding light nor air to surrounding properties because it is not new. The owners wish to keep their large parcel in its current natural state. Several factors make any division of the parcel more difficult. The subject was connected to the existing septic system at some point in the past. It is functioning according to county standards. The county prohibits dwellings on two separate lots from being on the same septic system. Numerous requirements for the new septic system and the challenging topography would make a lot split have to be of far greater consequence than if they had sewer access. The resulting loss of the CAUV tax status if a split were forced, coupled with the considerable expense of any new septic installation, if in fact approval could be obtained by the county, would render obstacles to having their family member join them. The reference to the reduction in the setback is a precautionary request based on an estimate of the existing conditions. The subject appears to be just at or just shy of the 40 feet behind the property line parallel to the public frontage. The proposed addition is to the rear of the building. No additional increase in the footprint towards the adjacent property is planned. Obviously, the proposed variance allows the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted within the underlying zoning district. However, this is not a typical 20,000 square foot R1 lot. The action required tonight is to approve, modify, or deny the applicant's request for variance in case number 4-20-A, requesting relief to sections 506 and 602 of the Union Township zoning resolution as to authorize and maintain a second principal structure on a single lot of record and to reduce the front yard setback to the existing condition in the R1 single family residential district based on the evidence, testimony, and findings of facts.
Anyone here to speak in favor of this? Step up. Give us your name, spell your last name, please.
Sure. Good evening. I'm Nathan Broman, the owner.
Last name Bromen, B-R-O-M-E-N.
Okay, raise your right hand. You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Pleasure to be here. We're excited about hopefully having my mom join us at the guest house that's on the property. It's been there. We've moved in about 10 years ago, and I think the building was used in maybe a dual purpose in the past. I think they had 2 sons that lived there. One of them lived in there as an apartment. They also had like a dog grooming business, the utility room. There was a tub there. I think they did some washing some dogs and grooming some dogs and so forth. But my mom, is getting up there. It's time. She's sold her house, so she's looking for an alternate place. She's staying with my sister currently. But we'd like to put an addition on. In the photo, the half to the left is the north, and where the arrow is currently is where a previous patio is, and that's where we want to put the 16 by 16 addition. She's one of these quilters. She's into sewing and so forth. So she needs a big space in order to do her quilting. No large parties, crazy noise, or anything like that. She's a quilter. So that's the purpose of the use. You will note the neighbor that is closest there on the property line. That's Mike and Pam Kay, good friends of ours. They recently put up a large shed, which I believe you're already aware of, to park his RV. There's a pretty good buffer in between. There's no impact. They don't have any issue with it. And I've heard no other issues from any other neighbor. I think they were all noticed. So happy to entertain any questions that you have at this point.
Questions of the board?
The work that the men were doing today, is that the addition that they were working on today?
Today, they were putting a new roof on the main house, and tomorrow they'll be putting a new roof on the carport, and that's to the building to the right.
Right.
Now, there are folks working in the, renovating on the inside of the addition currently.
Okay.
We worked with staff since December,
Okay.
got in touch with Mr. Wright,
Yeah.
and because of the COVID issues and so forth, we tried to get surveys. We tried to go to the health department. We've been to all those different things. I think when you read the description, it alluded to some of the issues that we're having there. The only thing I would mention is that it has its own septic system separate from the house. And so it's already been operational for 10 years, as long as I've been there. So the county's already approved it. It's operational. It's functional. So
Okay.
there doesn't need to be any additional septic added.
Any other questions from the board? Is there anybody else? I'm going to ask these questions even though there's nobody
Sure,
else in
no
here. Is
problem.
there anybody else to speak in favor of? Anybody speak against the proposal? Discussion of the board.
Yeah, I got the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. So, other fact that we'll do that we're gonna have today. I don't have a problem with it. Just wish it hadn't already been done.
Is it already done?
Or it appears.
Much of the main structure is constructed already. It is not complete. As we're going through the process, and the person we tried to get the surveyor from, the approach was initially if we could flag off a 1 acre parcel that would still keep the CAUV and the, I guess it turns out when we got directed through the health department, they said there's some type of requirement that if you would ever take the building down in the future, you had to have a 2.5 acre parcel in order for the proper leach bed field. So that wasn't going to be consistent with the, keeping the CAUV and the
So the answer is
remote.
the outside's already done?
outside is already done. That is correct, yes, sir.
Okay.
It's drywalled too, correct?
I'm sorry?
Is it drywalled?
It is, yes.
Yeah.
It's close to completion.
Okay.
One of the reasons why we wanted to go through, instead of, this has been apparently on the books, it's, somebody's lived in it before, but, we believe we should be in compliance, so we wanted to make it right. So we wanted to apply, go through the process. Some folks would have, done a renovation and just never said anything. We're like, we want to go through the process. We approached it from the beginning. Apparently, inspectors and so forth were waylaid during the virus. I mean, it seemed like every step we took, there was an obstacle, but, we want to do the right thing, and, we want to make it right. My mom is living here. I don't want it to be a subpar project in any way, and so we want to do it right.
Mr. Hanrahan,
What?
you have something to say?
No?
No? Does anybody want to make a motion? I have a problem with it already being done.
Yeah, that's, I have a problem with that too.
I have a problem with it already being completed.
But I don't know how much of that is because of the conditions that we have been existing under and how much of it is just, they didn't take care of this before they started building.
Well, if it wasn't, if the pad was still there, if you could still see the pad, if it was as that picture, I would have been inclined, to approve it. So that being the case, my issue is, we can't, the public watches this. I don't want the public thinking they can just go out and do whatever they want, and then later, or if something happens, or if they get caught or whatever, then they come to the board. That's not how it's supposed to work.
Do you know, did Scott catch this or what?
So my understanding is when started going through county processes, they realized that because they bought it previously, that the structure was not in compliance because no two dwellings onto one. So I know you've been in and out for several months just going through everything. So I believe it just came to the attention once we realized that there were two dwellings on the property. So just going through the permit process for the addition onto the structure.
If I could,
Yes.
I was not aware of the requirement of one residence per parcel until we filed for a permit.
Right,
We
with
started,
the addition.
yeah, we didn't start any work until we applied for a permit. Ardent Construction is the contractor. They went to get the permit. That started the ball rolling, and we realized, hey, there's an issue. You have to apply for stuff. So then I made contact with staff here. They've been very helpful and pleasant all the way through. Our first step was to be directed to get a survey and see if it could be broken out in the parcel. We attempted that. The first surveyor was impossible to reach. I drove by his office. I called every day. It turned out he was in the hospital. Didn't know that. Got a hold of another surveyor. He said, yeah, that guy's in the hospital. So we tried to deal with that surveyor. He did some preliminary stuff, checked in with the health department. The health department came up with that rule of you have to have 2.5 acres. It's got an existing working septic currently, but you got to have 2 acres. Okay, that's fine. We want to try to follow the rules in the process. So these hardships and that process what led us to requesting for the appeal from the board.
So the builder,
Builder found it.
and continued on anyway.
Yeah, it sounds like the builder went ahead and continued.
Just assuming that,
I mean, I would have thought the builder would say, hey, I can't go any further.
That's probably my issue. I explained to him that I was in the process, working with staff, going through, and that I felt I was being led in a direction that was going to resolve the issue. And so, you know, I think the contractor continued at my direction. I'll take credit for that.
I feel like you articulated, Brian, that, you know, doing something after the fact is really against my grain. The other thing that I've been sitting here thinking about is, in some ways, I would rather grant them a conditional use to have a second residence, because that would expire when the property changed hands or something like that. As opposed to granting a variance where there would always be the ability to have two primary residences on the property. I mean, I grant that it's a 12-acre property, and honestly, I probably would have gone with approving it had it not already been under construction or half constructed or done or whatever. But I still have that reservation about allowing a second primary residence on a single parcel.
I agree with the conditional use.
Because we had the experience of that last meeting, that you know, the conditional use expires when the use stops. So I don't want to offend or project, but, you know, if your mother is going to live there and when she passes, there's not someone else to
It's
move
not
in
gonna
there.
become a rental property on.
Yeah, it's not going to
right,
be a rental property.
Right.
When was the last person that lived in there?
My understanding is that the previous owners had two adult sons, one of which was paralyzed at age 16 in a car
So
accident.
no one's lived there for 10 years?
That's correct. No one has lived there for 10 years. We used it, we moved from a two-story house with a basement to a one-story house with no basement, and it was used as storage. No one has lived there during the time I lived there. And again, I did apply for the permit, or try to apply for the permit, and they said you have to go through the township office, and the township identified the issue. So we did try to go through the process. Thank you.
You gonna wordsmith it for?
This is the one I'm looking for. All right, let me try this. Jeez, just because I've been on the board so long.
Trying to honor our elders here. You'd think you'd appreciate it.
Some of us don't. I'll make a motion to approve partially the applicant's request for a variance and make a change to a conditional use in case 420-A, requesting relief to section 602 a zoning resolution to authorize, not, to reduce the front yard setback to the existing condition, to grant a variance to reduce the front yard setback to the existing condition in the R1 family district, and to grant a conditional use for a second residence on the property, a second principal structure on a single lot record, and to, based on the evidence, testimony, and finding of fact.
Any discussion on that from the board members?
Sorry, I had a little trouble spitting it out there.
Do we need to enumerate what the condition is of the conditional use?
I said the conditional use would be to grant a second primary structure on the lot of record. I didn't quite
But-
say that.
Yeah, yeah.
What else do I? need
Well,
to
I was
fill
just
in?
thinking, the condition is the life of the family member, right? I mean, as long as the family member is living there, it's not it's not forever to be turned into a rental property thereafter her passing. Is that correct, or is that
That's
not
correct.
what you?
Yeah.
Excuse me, could I
Yes, sir.
request that if it's could it be worded a family member? So suppose my son graduates from college after my mother passes, and he would like to live there instead of in the main house. If you would say a family member, I think that would, because we have an investment in,
Right.
in that we're making, and we would like to continue the use of it, of course. I recognize your desire for it to be family residential. I don't have a problem with that, so.
So essentially, the condition is, really what it boils down to is that this not become a rental property, a rental unit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's the condition, that makes
Yeah,
it,
and we're
that
not-
covers you there, and then it tightens it up.
You got that?
So the condition is that it is permitted as long as it does not become a rental unit. Which I don't think that was ever your intention, was it?
No, sir.
Okay.
Any other discussion of the board members? Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mr. Hanneran,
Aye.
Mr. Ford,
Aye.
Mr. Cangrove,
Aye.
Mr. Jang.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you, board. Have a good, safe holiday.
Yeah, you too, thank you.
Anything else come before the board this evening?
No, sir.
Have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Two in a row.